I think that we think that therapy means that you're crazy. I think therapy is the best investment that you can do. It's also the most courageous thing you can do. When we talked about family and we changing generational patterns, the best thing you can do to start that journey to impact your environment is be in therapy.
Hey, thank God for another day. Hey, I know we could be another way. Hey, pray. Thank God for another day. Hey, I know we could be another way.
Man, oh, the blood. Girl, this look like, do I look like I'm holding a church mic?
Yes.
Listen, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Jess Ask the Podcast, where we create a safe space for influencers to decompress, have fun, and just ask. It's your girl, Jessica S. Smith, and I am appreciative for today, okay? I thank God that it's another day. Why? Because today is the first day that we are acknowledging this month of May. May, okay, is here. What is May? What is May? What is May, Desiree?
Mental Health Month.
What? Them folks can't hear you?
They heard me.
It's Mental Health Awareness Month. Okay, she mad because I didn't do her theme song. Okay, Desiree. Desiree. You
Hey,
see
y'all.
how folks be just spoil. Just spoil.
Hey, y'all.
Just spoil. I mean, can somebody get her some act right?
Man.
Some act and the right, okay? Desiree, we got some chocolate drop
I'm
up in here today. It's a little sex.
She already came in,
just
dropping
came
it,
in, dropping nuggets.
Yes.
They ain't McDonald's
Yes.
nuggets.
No.
I mean, my
And these
God.
fresh, too. Fresh.
My God,
Yeah.
today.
Oh, my.
Y'all, I put a post out asking for people's favorite mental health professional. And this young lady came up multiple times.
Yeah.
Listen, the gag is she be on the TV, she be doing new, all the, I just had to do my little research or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, she a little famous. She a little famous out in these streets, you know what I'm saying? She doing a little doctor and stuff and helping folks with their little problems and stuff. I mean, she doing the doggone thing. We have none other than the beautiful and blessed and intelligent Latrice Dailey. Y'all give it up for this Dailey! Woo, 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 woo. We ain't got no real the sound effect applause, so we just do.
It's real and genuine.
Yes. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm honored to be here, Jess. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored that people think I'm a good therapist. I'm honored that my mind is blown.
You cute. You a cute, good therapist, obviously, because it's the swag for me. Y'all, she tall. My sister would love it. She tall. She curvy stuff like the South. Okay, she look like the South. I love it. You trying to?
I'm gonna have a cramp in my cheek. So if y'all see me holding, if I smile a lot, I get a cramps in my jaw.
Yes.
So I can tell that that's gonna happen today.
Yes, because I feel like this is about to be fun, but it's so necessary that you're here. So I want to say thank you for accepting the invitation and just coming in. So I just want to, because I normally introduce it, but I'm not in the profession and I don't want to say anything wrong. And so we know that you're a therapist. When people say, "Oh, I need a therapist on Mental Health Awareness Month," whoop. There's a lot that when people start researching therapy and who they need to look at. It's this list. If you go, I don't know what their website is, but
Psychology
Today, and they do this list of what therapists are good at, and they have the different therapy that they offer. What does that look like for your practice?
As opposed to what I actually specialize in?
Yeah.
All right. So I specialize in helping women between the ages of 18 and 50. I'm really big with family therapy as well as couples therapy. Couples therapy is something that's new, but it's also something that I'm passionate about because I get to see how we can, even if we grew up in a dysfunctional family, we've seen dysfunctional relationships, we will repeat those dynamics subconsciously within our marriage. if we don't have a good idea of like what we actually want and what we're willing to do to produce, right, the change that we want in our households. So I specialize in treating women from 18 to 50, couples, and family therapy.
Family therapy is a beautiful thing. Like I'm learning that right now. And I think that people have to have a specific anointing for it, because there's a lot of personality that comes with that. Why is that needed? Why is family therapy needed? What did you say?
I think family therapy is needed, so we, in our culture, most of us grew up in this idea that what stays in our household, what's said in our household stays in our household. And sometime when the household is sick, we're as sick as that household because no one ever spoke up. No one ever addressed that Paw was touching cousin. And sometimes when that goes unaddressed, that impacts us showing up as a whole adult. It impacts also how we birth the next generation, right? It impacts us also how we come into relationship. Unresolved trauma impacts every interaction that it comes in contact with.
That's so good. And so what my mind goes to when I think about the family, we think about the people that are affected. Excuse me, girl. It's a little warm here, but that are affected by it. I can't help but to think about our more our low income areas, because when people think about therapy, sometimes they match the cost with that, all right? And so it's like I'm on my wit's end with my family, because I won't say wit's end, but like I'm a single mother raising my family, or I'm a single father raising my family. I can't afford these opportunities to do this therapy that you're talking about. So what would you be your response to them?
So if you have a job, possibly you have benefits at your job, like EAP, all right? But some low income families, if you have Medicaid, then also your kid can get resources and counseling through Medicaid. There is this resource called Loveland, right? Loveland also pays for certain people, women and children, to actually get therapy. The other thing is that most good integral practices have a hardship rate, right? So 9 times out of 10, if you see this big 175, if you do a consultation, most times, most therapists have a hardship rate that's probably half the price of that original rate.
But they just don't advertise it, so people just have to ask. That's good information. That is good information, because I know a lot of people won't go because they'll see that and they go ahead and wave it off because the presentation of the thing. So I love how we're getting to the family therapy. How did you even get into it? What drove you to that type of therapy? Because I know there's a lot of different avenues that you can go with it.
So I did my internship at Hillcrest. Up until I worked at Hillcrest.
Now explain, some of these folks are not from Birmingham, so you got to explain what Hillcrest is.
Hillcrest is in Irondale at the bottom of the hill, right? Right before you get to Central Plaza, you turn off on a Porto. That is where Hillcrest is. And it's a place for kids with behavioral issues, right? Okay. Also kids that's probably displaced from their home due to behavioral health issues or mental health issues. Did my internship there. At the time, also, I was working at Brookwood Hospital on the psych ward. The one thing that I would see there is how a diagnosis of schizophrenia, bipolar, would literally split the household dynamic. So if it was 2 people, a parent, a father and a mother, caring for a schizophrenic child, 9 times out of 10, what I would be seeing or encountering is that they're going through divorce. Right. The family is in dysfunction because everything kind of revolves around the kid with the mental health issues. Right. So I realized then that families need to have psychoeducation. They also needed mental health to support the client. Right. If not, this broke down the family dynamic. Right. This brought strife or chaos into the family dynamics. So that's kind of where my passion came in from. I also would say that working at Hillcrest doing my internship gave me a different view of trauma. I think even for myself, I did not think I had any trauma as a kid. And I'm like, I'm smiling because when people say that to me, I just was like, okay, you know, they come in like, oh, I don't think I had a pretty normal, decent life. I'm like, that's a red flag, right? But I think that working at Hillcrest, I got to see people with different types of trauma and also how it impacted the family dynamic and also how this sickness literally continue unaddressed. Not just, you can't just treat the person with the mental health issue or the trauma. You need to also treat, support, and give psychoeducational to the family so that this does not continue.
What you're saying is so real, and I've experienced it on a level, but not as far as like the child, right? And so I really feel like that there's a lack of education. So, okay, because I'm really can get past. I'm trying to calm myself down right now, because you're talking in the lane, honey. You're talking in the lane, because it can become so disheartening because of the lack of communication and the lack of education. And the communication part is the whole aspect of the I think you said psychodynamic, or I'm trying to sound smart, y'all. You see, I'm trying to sound smart. Get it? The psycho. If you put psycho in front of a word, you sound a little smart, okay?
I cannot.
Get it, Jess? Listen, the psychoeducation, what's needed, as even as far as if a parent is in that situation and the child, like, how do I support my parent in that situation? And so so if I'm ignorant, educate me, right? I really feel like there is a lack of that support for people that deal with family members and such, and that people have to go through not even just mental anguish, but even financial, because they're not themselves at that point. And so what I'm seeing is there's a disconnect because of the language that we choose to use, like, oh, she crazy. Like, oh, she crazy, or he crazy, or they ain't in their right, man. They couldn't kind of dollar if it was in front of them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, using language like that. So how do you teach? Let's say we were talking about it, and you were teaching me like how I could manage that properly, or that my language better, or my education better. What would be some things that you would teach me on managing that process?
All right. So then the first thing I think about, and one thing that perpetuates stigma and people not getting help, is those labels that you said. Oh, she just crazy. Yeah. She ain't never been right. We just let her sit over there. Judgment, right? So I tell you to trade judgment for self-compassion. Instead of coming from this place of knowing what is normal and then judging what is abnormal, I tell you to be curious. I tell you to be curious, because all behavior is communicating a need. I learned that at Glenwood. I was thinking this on the way over here. My most impactful job that helped me as a therapist was working at Glenwood when I worked with kids that could not speak, that had inappropriate behavior. So they might try to hit me over the head or throw something at me, but I couldn't focus on the behavior that was abnormal. I had to look beyond that to see the need and see what they were trying to communicating beyond the inappropriate behavior. But I can't also do that if I am being judgmental, so I have to be curious, even though it looks different from what I might do. And I also have to practice self-compassion, because self-judgment just causes more defensive and resistance. Right. So if I'm self-compassionate and I'm curious and I'm asking questions about why they're coming from the place that they're coming, why they can't count those things, why they sit off to the side, if I get into their world, then I can also lead them to this side over here, and they'll be open to the process.
Y'all, when she said, I can't even remember the words, but I just remember how I felt my legs just went tingling. Like, I felt that. So that was so good. That's why you a therapist. You a therapist, okay? You was a real therapist.
I think we use a lot of shame. I think we use a lot of shame. We reject what is not normal to us. We reject what we don't understand. We also judge what
does not give. We don't know how to put language.
Come on.
And so one of the things, and I think this is a good segue to ask this because I did a little research on you, right? Y'all know I be researching. So you're very fluent with your words. Okay, you got a vocabulary, and the way you put them together is just beautiful. You said on one of these interviews you did, you brought up the word intellectual, not delusion, but dialect or intellectual. Am I saying that right?
Intellectual dialogue?
Dialogue,
Okay.
dialogue, not dialect. I don't know what no dialect is. Intellectual dialogue. And so what is the connection with the what we just spoke about as far as like the shame and the reason why we don't I guess meet people where they are?
That's it. I'm like, because if my client is speaking apples and oranges, I cannot be speaking cantaloupe and watermelon to them. And also judging because they're not coming up to this level, right? I need to be curious about why we're using apples and oranges. I need to be curious about their world and what apples and oranges means in their world, as opposed to being stuck in my world and deeming what they say or do to be abnormal because they're not speaking watermelons and cantaloupes, right? Experience, perspective, perception. It's different for all of us. And our perceptions, our perspectives, how we do things, it was formed from our experiences, right? And if we have different experiences, we're going to have different perspectives, perceptions. And so I think in counseling, you are always meeting the client where it is, right? Shame, discipline, and self-judgment is a fearful thing, right? We feel more empowered. I think we resort to judgment when we cannot reason. I think that's a defense mechanism, right? I think I'm using shame when I believe that this child's or family member's behavior is saying something about me that is confronting an insecurity in me. That confrontation now puts me on the defense. So now I judge and I use shame, discipline on this child, which exacerbates the problem.
This is so... I think I'm just... right now, I'm just taking this in because that... It's almost like I can see it in like an equation. Like, since this, therefore this was the reaction of this. And if we really do some self-reflection or, you call it intellectual dialogue. I call it self-dialogue. That's the easy version, y'all. Y'all can just... y'all can just... my God. But if you do that self-encounter, but that's another reason why therapy is so important, right? Because, so if I'm coming to... I know you do family therapy, couples therapy, and you focus on women. So I'm a woman. So talk to me. I'm in
your ideal range.
I am
absolutely.
Listen, so if you, I might call you. But so first of all, I think for one, there's a fear that's attached to therapy. Why do you think that is?
I think we think that therapy is only for if you have a problem, if you have something going on. I think that we think that therapy means that you're crazy. I think therapy is the best investment that you can do. It's also the most courageous thing you can do. When we talked about family and we changing generational patterns, the best thing you can do to start that journey to impact your environment is be in therapy, so you can no longer respond like that environment. So you can now influence that environment so that that family environment does not influence you. I think therapy can also be scary because it requires awareness, acknowledgement, and action. We think we just get to action and change, but it's a process. It happens in small increments. So if you're coming to therapy, you have an awareness, right, that you want to get better, that it's things that you want to improve, right? It's a pattern of self-discovery as well, right? It's probably sometimes some confrontation into some hidden areas that you have not wanted to address, that you have also repressed or suppressed, right? And it's laying dormant. And we gonna snatch the covers off of that. Not fast, but slowly. And how scary is it to confront some things in ourselves, right? That have caused us to self-sabotage, that has caused us to not live up to our full self-actualization. I'm like, therapy is a mirror.
Yeah.
In the world, I get to say, oh, you know, such and such did this and they made me do this. But in therapy, it's a mirror. You get to look at you.
We like to play victim. We really do. And I think the hard part about not playing victim, because one of the things I brought up even on the podcast, I was surprised I even brought this situation up, was that I was in an abusive relationship. Like, I survived an abusive relationship, and for a long time, you know, I was like, he did this, woo. And actually, therapy helped me get out of that relationship because I couldn't really see that I was in an abusive relationship while I was in there. And then, but when I was out, I'm so grateful that I was on a healing journey with God. Like, I was just really on a healing journey with God to where I was able to, like, but something was not, he was not healed. And he acted, like you said, every behavior has a reason for it, like a root for it. So I'm not looking at the behavior. I'm looking at, like, what needs to change here. And eventually, like, I'm one of the ones that have experienced an apology, like a genuine, sincere apology from the abuser. But I can't say that for everybody, because everybody has their own option to heal, right? And so I'm a woman, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm hearing this therapy thing. I'm hearing this, Dr. Dailey, I'm coming to you. Like, what do I expect from you? Like, because some people have an idea of, you gonna fix me.
Oh, God. Incorrect. That is a myth. I'm not gonna fix you. And I think I also try to lead my clients away from this idea that they're broken and it's something to fix. I usually lean towards, if you think you have a problem, you also have the solution, and it's in you, and we're gonna get it out. Right? I kind of lean towards that, right? And I heard you say this I'm going to backtrack a little bit about playing victim. I don't know if we play victim. Apostle Howell said something about the seat that we sit in. The seat that we sit in also determines the perspective, right? And the perception of what we're seeing, what we're experiencing. I think we can retell our stories. And as we heal, I kind of get to change my seat from victim to victor. Right. And I think walking through this stage of awareness, right, and then acknowledgement, and then accountability, right? Because if I had some accountability, I also know that it's some certain things that were in me that perpetuated this victim mindset. It was also some inner, and I'm like, that's the empowering plot twist where now this didn't happen to me, I happened to it. And now God gets to change the narrative. Now I get to change my seat, and I get to sit in the seat of victor, not just victim. Victim also, you know, in the victim seat is no action or accountability needed. But I also try to empower my clients to know that the moment that you can come into this idea of accountability is the same place and power you have to change the story. Because as long as, I keep saying this, everyone else, then this can continue to happen to me. Yeah. The moment I take accountability, I now can recreate a new narrative.
That's so good. That's so good. So basically, accountability gives you power.
Accountability gives us power. Good relationships require that. Pastor said that. Apostle said that. Good relationships require that. A certain level of counseling is accountability. I will be empathetic with you. I am very compassionate. I'm an encourager by nature. God told me that. That's why I got called to encourage. He said, I asked God, what are, God, what am I to do? Because I was a nursing major up until my junior year. Kept feeling called to psychology. Told my mom I want to be a psychologist. She was like, well, they don't make any money. I also told God that. I'm like, God, they don't make any money. And God was like, no, you called to encourage. And I was like, okay, but what is that? And I didn't have a full vision. I just had that. But I'm like, I also have to hold my clients accountable, because that's where the true power is in. The accountability then lets them take action. But as long as I'm in this awareness and acknowledgement, I can coast, but I can't get to action until I first get to accountability.
That's so good. One of the things that I'm trying to be obedient right now. So we kind of talked a little bit before we started recording, and you reminded me that you were in family therapy, and I was like, well, for people that are called to family therapy, something happened.
Oh yeah.
For you, can we talk about that?
Sure. Again, working at Hillcrest. I was working at Hillcrest. This is when I identified I had some trauma. So my mentor, the guy that was supervising my internship, Mr. Jerome Wells, he sat me down.
I'm sorry, I laughed because you said the name.
I got to, because he had a vital impact. I'm like, that man used to just be saying stuff, doing stuff, and it was in one end out the next. But it was so much confrontation. 3 years after leaving him, the things that he was saying and the things that he was doing. And so he sat me down and we did an HTP test. Okay. Have you heard of that before? HTP test is like where you draw a house, you draw a tree, and you draw a person. Most psychologists do it. And then it's interpretations that you make based upon the things that you draw on this test, right? So I remember, and I thought it was just artistic, but in my tree, I drew a tree, and my tree had a little dark circle in it, right? And I showed it to Mr. Jerome. He was there, and he was like, we ain't gonna talk about it today, young lady. When you can come in earlier, then we gonna interpret your test. So I come in early one day, we talk about my test, and then he says, you know, you had some type of trauma happen probably between the ages of 9 and 13, I'm gonna say.
This off a tree?
Off a tree, yeah. And when he said that, I'm like, I can't really think of anything. I had a normal childhood. All right, so then full circle, I was going to church on Sundays at my old home church, and I was having anxiety. I would have so much anxiety. Literally when church ended, I ain't talk to people after church. Didn't know why I couldn't do it. I would just feel so anxious sometimes that I would leave church early. And then thinking about 9 to 13, I was heavier. I tell people today, I never knew I was 6'2". No one told me I was 6'2". Everybody just said I was big because I was overweight. I was bigger than most of my siblings. And Sundays was a traumatic day for me. Sundays was so traumatic. Y'all remember the church socks that you could get from girl. The ribbon. Man, traumatic, trauma. All right, so I'm 6'2". I don't know what size shoe I wear. I wear a size 12 now. But I just remember those little church socks they didn't do the little fold, girl. They just, I pulled them. Jessica, they just sat on my ankle. Okay.
No, now that's cover the ankle. Didn't flip. They just covered.
It went enough.
They didn't have enough room to flip.
Yeah,
lengthwise.
because they didn't give the woman of God the right size
size.
sock.
They got a
That's
small
on them.
size.
They were supposed to give you the right size sock.
So the trauma was like every Sunday, I was picked on, by my older cousins. I also would go to my aunt's house. Now, mind y'all, this same cousin that picked on me, which now I can therapize and, theory, but he used to pick on me every Sunday. I would go to his house. I used to sit in a hot Toyota Camry. It was brown in my mama car and refused to go into my aunt's house because I knew. I'm like, my cousin's going to pick on me. Nobody stopped him. This is how I got this shame, right? Or dealt with shame. Right, I would not go to church. I would have so much anxiety, and then that happened from the ages that I was from 9 to 13. Every Sunday, getting dressed was like, I don't know. It was not like the typical girl. Like, I'm ready to get dressed. I'm like, I just hope my dress fit so my mom don't have attitude. Or, Lord, let these socks come up, right? Because then I got to walk outside of church and I got to hear, Marlon or Elvin make comments about how I look or, those socks too short.
Yeah.
And I mean, about my weight, about my size, right? And so at that point was when I knew I had trauma. I also knew the importance of, if I was going to be a good therapist also needed to be in therapy. So at that point, I started doing EMDR therapy.
It's playing that. See, that's what I meant with that Psycho Today list. They do all that, and people don't understand that.
EMDR is where they do bilateral stimulation on both sides of your brain. And basically, you do reprocessing of traumatic memories, right? You can do it with tapping, or you can also do it by following the ball, which eye movement. But the first part of it is just resourcing, right? Because once you uproot trauma, I mean, you're going to feel it in your body. Y'all know the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Mm-hmm. Another great book on trauma. I remember I started working on this. My anxiety was like at an all-time high. I didn't go around my friends. I literally was just going to work, to my internship, and then being to myself and to my therapy session, because this was uprooting a lot of lies that I believe, right? Even it was kind of redoing my self-perception, because my self-perception was still stuck in that girl that was from 9 to 13, right? Who, even though I was not that size, I still saw myself at that size. I also felt like I was struggling to advocate for myself, because most times I would be silent. This also, brought up a part in me that I realized that I didn't like crying, because not crying was like a defense. I could not let people know, that they hurt me. And so a lot of crying, because 9 to 13-year-old me, my inner child, she needed to cry. She needed to know that it's okay to cry and that vulnerability is strength, right? And she also needed to undo lies. So family trauma started with me, or what I've dealt with in my family is like shame, discipline, shame, criticism, judgment, really focus on the problem, deep-rooted insecurity, low self-esteem. I remember being at my grandmother's funeral, and my cousin, the same one that picked on me, he tells this story about, him being picked on because he was dark-skinned. And I'm like, that now hit me in a way where I can have compassion and no longer judgment, because I'm like, well, honestly, he was just doing to me what was mimicked to him. Yeah. Yep. And I'm like, the parts of me, because I'm like, y'all, my cousin has a daughter. Everybody says I look just like his daughter.
What?
Right? So I'm like, now whatever he was picking apart on in me was only the insecurities that he had with himself. I confronted that. I exposed that. Him seeing me, encountering me, also allowed him to now reciprocate what was done to him, right? And so one thing I'm an advocate for, my siblings to tell you, shame not gonna work. You're not gonna do it to my niece. You're not gonna do it to my nephew. If your words don't uplift, edify, speak life, no nonsense. Even at school, I'm that auntie that is at the school. Anything happen, like if y'all need a therapist to come and talk to this family because they're bullying my niece or nephew, let's talk, because I can guarantee you it's not about this child. It's bullying. It's what's going on over here. Yeah. So I guess that was when my passion came, because that was something that took a long time to overcome and really impacted my first, I would say, from 21 to 27.
21 to 27. So 21 to 27 was the journey of you getting to where you are now, because you talking to yourself in the mirror while you watching your face, right?
How you know?
I told you I did my research, sis.
Yes. Now we are, your words, my words mean a lot to me, right? It was so important.
Nope. Hold up. Nope.
I ain't even let you run past
Listen,
that one.
Whoop, grab that. Woo, out. Desiree, what she just say?
Please, come on.
My words mean a lot to me. I'm like, it was so important for me to really change my inner dialogue. It was a time that from 21 to 27 that all I heard was my cousin. All I heard was the people that I encountered on Sunday, and it was a negative dialogue. And I needed to retrain and align that voice to who God says I am. And I needed to speak to myself and be a positive cheerleader, right? I needed to speak to myself to uplift and edify, right? And I think that also taught me I needed to be intentional about what I expose myself to, because we're always in a place where either we are influencing or we're being influenced. And I refuse downright. My family will tell you, it's going to be no negative vibes around me.
So when did you get fed up with not believing your words over the other? Like, what was your fed up point? Because I know we women, we got a fed. When we get fed up with something, we change it.
Let's see. When was my fed up point? I think I just kept having confrontation where I was realizing that the narrative that was going on in my head and the perception that I had of myself did not match my current reality. It was also causing me to sabotage a lot of things because I'm dealing with survival. And those things that I did to survive from ages 9 to 13 was not needed 21 to 27.
This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give her a pulpit, cause she over here preaching. Like, you got away with words. Like,
y'all know the funny thing about that? It's like I took we used to have to do the occupational assessment, right? In like 4th grade. Took an occupational assessment. On that was counselor, psychologist. Okay, I never even thought about this. And I remember reading the requirements, the schooling, and it was like broad vocabulary. I was like, I ain't really got that. Literally.
When I say broad,
my sister was like, sis, I don't even, you can say some stuff. And I'm like, uh-huh. But I really have to go and look it up and see and make sure. Like, oh, that's what she was saying. But I think that's also the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. My work, I cannot do this job. The most impactful part of my job is leaning on the Holy Spirit.
Let's talk about it.
It's not what I've been taught in school. It's leaning on the Holy Spirit to see what I don't, to see what's not being said, to poke in places where the client is trying to hide, and to glorify the Holy Spirit. It ain't enough books for that. Listen. It's a constant surrendering to my intellect, my schooling, to let the Holy Spirit do its work.
I'm about to say something. Because you do have to, listen, you do have to go to school to be a counselor. Y'all can't be popping up and saying, oh, well, I got Holy Spirit, so I'm about to be a counselor. Like, they can't. So let's start with that. However, after you've done with the process, right, the counselors that do, like, it seems like they're book heavy. Right? What do you like? And people experience that level of that, like that counsel. Like, how do you navigate someone like picking the right therapist for you? That's what I guess I'm trying to say. How do you pick a person navigate picking the right therapist for you? Because I think some could have therapy burnout of going to different therapists, going to present themselves over and over again to be getting nowhere.
I think don't just leave your therapist because she or he is not good. I think therapy is a relationship, and it's a collaborative relationship.
That's so good.
I tell my clients that they can hold me accountable. I tell my clients that they can tell me if something was, hey, you went too left there, or they were offended. I need it to be as transparent as possible, right? And I also let them know that I'm not coming from a place of a expert, right? That they're the expert in this dynamic, right? And I get to flow with them. I think finding a good therapist, consultation, right? Consultation, I always say whatever you are seeking to work on, right? Or I would say look at the top 3 things and make sure that matches with your therapist, right? I think also theoretical orientation, right? I mean, I feel like I'm a clinical counselor, but I'm also a spiritual counselor where I can meet any person where they are spiritually. I am still a spiritual counselor, right? I'm still going to be led on the Holy Spirit no matter what you come in there with and your beliefs. And I think also just knowing that it's a place where you can be transparent. A lot of places, times in therapy, you know, if you're not saying, if you're placating and you're getting to the point where you are now appeasing your therapist and not saying certain things, that not something has went wrong. Because it should always be a place where you feel that you can be transparent, that you can hold your therapist accountable, and that you can have your say, good or bad.
So this is good. So what the question I think is coming up for me is, as a client, am I allowed to how am I allowed to interview you because I'm paying you? Like in my mind, I'm like, it's as a client, I'm paying you to interview you to see if you're a good fit or whatever. What questions do I need to ask, or what does that dialogue look like?
I would always ask about what they specialize in. If you're a trauma therapist, I would ask if they are EMDR certified, because that's the most effective thing right now for trauma. If it's a child, then trauma-focused CBT. So I would ask what their interventions are, right? I would ask do they do brief therapy, or if they have family systems, right? I would also just ask about their personality. Are you okay with confrontation? I always ask my client too if they're okay with confrontation. How do you feel about confrontation? How do you usually respond? Because confrontation is going to happen in therapy, right? And I realized that some of us too, and so going back to a therapist being bad or good, or people haven't been burnt out with it, a certain part of addressing any problem will require confrontation. And I think that sometimes if we have negative views about confrontation, we're going to shy away from it. But confrontation for me, even in therapy and even in relationship, I'm game, because I get to learn a new information here. And confrontation is going to let me know something that I did not know, and it's going to highly impact that dynamic relationally or even in therapy.
Why? Because confrontation is looked at as a bad thing. That's what we're taught.
But it's good.
Yeah.
I'm it's, I think also, this is what helped me know the difference. I used to do this program called the 7 Challenges with adolescents for substance abuse. In that program, it had a thing called gentle confrontation. And I sometimes say to my clients, depending on what our rapport level is, hey, this is about to be some gentle confrontation here. I'm about to touch a place, and it might bring up something in you. But I also let them know too that even in the midst of that discomfort is an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for us to connect in a different way, right? I'm confrontation does not feel good, but confrontation is good. Perspective. It's the not feeling good. And if we've had trauma related to confrontation, we will shy away from it.
Yeah. We had a guest not too long ago, and she brought up the fact that going to therapy actually brought up a lot of stuff that made her reflect back into depression and stuff like that. Or how do you encourage that person that's actually going to therapy and is getting these really ugly places revealed to them? How do I remain encouraged when this is hurting me so bad? I've done so well. I've moved on, and I'm using quotations because in my mind, like you said, wherever you're positioned, in my mind, I've moved on. I'm physically doing well in my life, but you bring this up. I come to you, and this comes up, and I don't feel good. And I can't take you home with me.
Yeah. I think it's so important to do a lot of resources. Resourcing is what we call it in therapy, where I'm providing you with now the coping skills that you're going to need in the event that you are triggered, or in the event processing continues to happen once we get out of therapy. That could lead you into more anxiety. That could lead you into depressive thoughts. I always try to tell my client to honor the effort. Honor the effort. Honor your progress, and zoom in on the progress, not what at that current moment is wrong, right? I'm and then I literally start with this. In the past is depression, in the future is anxiety, and the peace is in the present. So staying in the present, right? If we ruminate a lot on past things, then we're gonna be depressed because that's all of the shoulda, coulda, woulda done differently.
Yeah.
And something about that is depressing because we cannot change it, but you can change it in the present.
Yeah.
You can do something differently in the present so that you don't. So it's a point of reference. That's all the past can be. I think I usually with my clients that deal with that, we're going to do some resourcing before so that when you're outside of therapy, I know that you can handle your triggers, right? I know that there's some healthy coping going on, that you're sitting with your emotions, right? That you're not setting the mood for depression, right? You're not listening to the sad songs. You ain't got the blind strong.
Like feeding it.
Yes, right? I think you spend a lot of time helping the client know that they can feel their emotions but not be engulfed by it.
Okay, let's go there. Cause woman of God, hello. I'm gonna be transparent right now. That's a area that I struggle with. Is like experiencing the emotion and not living there, not residing there. Like, how do I?
Okay.
Not like. Whew, come on, I'm here.
So
y'all finna get a live therapy session. Just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So the first thing, when we feeling a negative emotion or a difficult emotion, because I wouldn't say it's negative, but like depression or anger, the first thing we want to do is do something about it. And I say to you, instead of judging it, to just be curious about it, right? To see where you are feeling this emotion in your body, to practice some self-compassion, right? And so also to let it pass. I'm going to give you this. We call this like CBF fusion, where you're thinking something in your head, say what happened to you in the past, what you've been through, right? And in that present, now the present has fused with what you're thinking, and you think and perceive your present to be right where you were before. Those feelings come up as if you were right there before, right? So your thoughts, they are passing like passengers. If you seen somebody walking on the way up here, would you pick them up? Mm-mm. Now, if you seen Apostle Howell walking, would you pick him up?
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. Same way with our thoughts. They're passing passengers. Every thought that I think I don't have to pick up, I need to distinguish whether the thought itself and the feeling, is it problematic or is it profitable? Because see, I tell my clients, like, when I'm engulfed by it, these are the passengers, these are my thoughts. And if I become engulfed by it, it gets here, right? It also obscures my view in the present moment. But if it's passing, I get to choose what I pick up. And it might be profitable. And if it's a profitable thought, it expands this present moment. It enhances it. It provides something that will make the present moment better.
I see why Phelps put you in the chat. Desiree, I see why she was tagged. Yeah. If you told me that, and we want all this, I have something else to say to you, because I'm sitting here thinking like
it takes practice. Because sometimes, Joyce Meyer has this book, The Battlefield of the Mind. Spiritually, even it starts in our mind, right? And I'm like, that's the most place where we're fighting most times. That's where the work needs to be done. If we're picking up every thought and it's fact, taking it as fact, even if it's problematic, even if we know it's going to take us back to this place, I got to let this passenger pass. I let this thought pass. I'm only picking up what's profitable in my present. The pieces in the present. That is it. Not future, not past. The pieces in the present.
The peace is in the present.
Eckhart Tolle, the power now.
Yeah, like it seems like it's like not even encouraging, but it's like that power, like because you talking to a visual person. So in my mind, it's like, dog, I would want a therapist like you. You know what I'm saying? Like, take me there, let me see it, because if I don't see it, I'm not experiencing it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying not to even go into my own therapy session, because this is not what we came here for. We came here for the people, so the people can understand during Mental Health Awareness Month why it's important for them to be whole. And so I want to ask you this question before we end this, because I'm curious about this.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people might be curious about this. If they've never done like therapy before, what's the difference between a counselor, and a coach?
Okay. I think coaching, you're working towards a specific goal. Nothing clinical is involved. Possibly no diagnoses, possibly no expansion of looking at what is going on with you clinically, mentally, and emotionally that's impacting you from actually getting that goal. Performance, right? Strategy driven, not the full process. I think both can be profitable depending on if, and I think also coaching is something that is like brief therapy as opposed to counseling is more expansive, right? Even if you're coming to me about a present problem, we're going to reference the past, and we also going to proactively prevent this from happening in the future, right? So the goal is not really like brief, but impactful, like long term.
That's so good. So how do I know when it's okay to be coached in this thing versus counseled?
I'm like, so counseling to me, again, I think coaching is a symptom. How we talked about counseling is getting to the source behind it, right? As a coach, I might give you strategies to help you be productive and do what is right then and there. As a counselor, I might help you get to the source of what's inhibiting you from being productive.
That's so good. That's so good. I needed that for myself. And I also feel like, because I don't want to say like coaching is a cop out, because coaching is really good. Like I have plenty of coaches.
Yeah.
Coaching is good. But I think that there's a possibility that some of us may choose coaching over counseling because we think that it's the same thing.
And I think also coaching somehow disarms reservations towards counseling.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that I want to give this dynamic, right? At home, I can treat my symptoms, right? If I go to the doctor also is still going to kind of look at the source. It's not just it's the epidemiology. Where did this start, right? And I'm like, if I want to just stay on surface, right, then I might lean to a coach. If I'm looking for strategy, but I think also the work that we do is more clinical, mental, and emotional. And it's looking at the whole person, right? Mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. I think that coaching in our day for sure has less stigma attached to it than counseling. I think that's why it's big. I think also coaching is an aspect of mentorship too. I think mentorship and coaching is important. You should have somebody that can bring you along, coach you towards achieving something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, performance driven.
That's so good. That's so good. So I think that was needed to provide clarity with. I feel like I have to go home and just digest some of the stuff you said, like especially the whole passengers. What about you, Desiree? Yeah, like I think I gotta go sit in some of this stuff. Like the beautiful thing about this, by the time this come out, I'm gonna be free. I'm doing literally 5 sessions with some professionals at it. So I'm trying not to wear myself out. Oh my gosh. Look, Latrice, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming. I gotta go sit in this passenger. Like you got me with this passenger thing.
Really?
You told me you're right there, because it's really, you basically told me that I have control over who I take with me, and the who, it might be anger, it might be frustration, it might be depression. The who, that's what the who is. You know what I'm saying? We talk about people, leaving people alone, but we build these relationships with these emotions and marry these emotions, and we wondering why we're always the emotion.
Yeah. Eckhart Tolle talks about this pain body state. I think it's chapter 6 in A New World.
You know,
right, and it's the same
stuff for a long
thing.
time.
I'm like, it really is certain places and certain emotions that we are comfortable with, that have become our companion. And I say get curious, right? Get curious about holding on to depression. Not all times is it possible. Sometimes you do need medications, right? So sometimes it's not as easy as what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's other contributing factors that make this a little bit harder, right? But I'm like, most times we are holding on to these things because there's other unresolved things, right? We are clinging to sometimes these emotions because they empower us. They also sometimes allow us not to take action, right? I get to sit in this. I feel more comfortable in this state. And with that, we have to explore other contributing factors.
That's good.
If I could say something about just mental health awareness, you know, Apostle kind of hinted at this, but I always say that, like, our mental health is an investment. You're going to pay it either on the front end or you're going to pay it on the back end. Therapy is the maintenance for our mental health, right? Just like your car needs maintenance, it's daily maintenance that you do, it's monthly maintenance that you do, it's quarterly maintenance that you do, it's yearly maintenance that you do. But if you don't do any maintenance, the car is going to break down.
Yeah.
Therapy is like that. It's the maintenance that you need for your mental and emotional health. It's other things that we can do daily, like self-care or basics, what we eat, how we sleep, that influence our mental and emotional health.
Yeah.
It's more work, like looking at spiritual aspects, right?
Yeah.
The spirit of rejection, the orphan spirit. It's other inner child wounds, I think, is a big one that impact how we show up as an adult. It's certain things that we have to do to help have good mental and emotional health. And I mean, you can invest in it on the front end, because for some people, right, we do say, oh, it costs too much.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you're going to pay your too much on this end or that end.
You choose. You choose. Man.
This is so good.
That's so, it's like,
I'm kind of like you, Jess. I'm still just like,
yeah.
I keep hearing, like, one of the things that I keep picking up is giving permission to explore, to investigate, like, the feelings, the emotions, and then showing grace. It's like we don't understand. We tend to shy away from or talk about those things that we don't understand, but we haven't given the space to explore it or to really see why somebody may be acting the way that they do. You know what I'm saying? That compassion part, I think, is definitely what we're just missing a lot in humanity in general. Compassion, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't even ask why. Just ask what is this communicating to me? That why is a rabbit hole. It won't be reason enough. But what just keeps going? What is this trying to teach me? What is this revealing to me? Right? That keeps going. Why? It's like, well, would anything even be valid enough? So why are we chasing that question? What?
Oh my gosh, that was so good. I feel like a peace over me right now. Like, I can't even explain it. Like, yeah, you legit. I ain't say I ain't think that you were. Remind me to tell you something after we get off the recording, because I don't want to say it on here. The reason being why I ain't saying it, because it's not necessarily about me. It's about somebody else. But I'm honored that you, like, real talk, like, thank you so much for you to be so intellectually sound, but graced by God for something like this. Like, this is you, like. So if y'all look, I ain't pubbing, but what I'm feeling right now, and what I've learned, Desiree just said it, like, there is an anointing there, like, and I call it an art in my mind. The art of communication can go a lot of ways, and in counseling, the art of communication is a life or death situation. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I'm appreciative of you. Thank you so much for coming. If there was a final thought, if there was a last thing that you was like, hey, they missed all of this, but if they hear one thing, I want them to hear this, what would that be?
I would say your mental health and you, the best version of you, is worth fighting for. we hold on to a lot of things doggedly, determinedly. Why not hold on to yourself and your mental health as doggedly as you held on to things that hurt you? You're worth fighting for. Your best self, the best version of you is waiting for you to fight for it.
I'm worth fighting for. Oh my gosh, Desiree, you're worth fighting for.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, y'all. This just one. I think I'm scared to keep going. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is so good. This is so good. But Latrice, as I said, thank you so much. We'll have her information in the bio, in the description of this episode. But remember, y'all, listen, we going the whole month of May. Wow. The whole entire month of May. So you got a week to process everything she just said. And then we're going to come back next week. So I love you guys. Desiree, you that girl. You my
love you, girl.
You, what he called us the other week? Wonder Woman.
Wonder Twins.
Wonder Twins. That's what he said. To my Wonder Twin, I love you. Y'all, I love you. Until next week, remember, life could be much more simple if you just ask. See you later.